Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into Imperfect Life. Today I'm going to show you how to make this gorgeous Minky Baby Blanket. This is for a coworker of mine who's having a baby girl in a couple of months. This fabric is so luxurious and so silky and so soft, it's like love at first touch. I've made dozens of these for people and they just love them. There are a few things I want you to know about Minky. It can be challenging to work with, but it's not impossible, so don't be intimidated by it. You just need to take extra measures to keep the fabric from slipping amongst itself. Another thing that you should know about Minky is that not all Minky is created equal. You can find this at your big brick and mortar craft and fabric stores. You can also find it online. I have used both. And there is a difference. I am not affiliated in any way. I don't get paid in any way, but I will tell you that my preference is a line called Shannon Fabrics that you can find on fabric.com. The quality is exceptional compared to what you might get at the retailers. Also, you never want to use fabric softener with Minky. Another thing to know about Minky is that when you cut it, it is a mess. It will look like a blizzard in your sewing or craft room or living room, wherever you are, so make sure you have a vacuum handy. Finally, you don't need a lot of time to make this blanket. It is 8 straight seams. You can probably make it in less than an hour, 2 at the most. Let's get started. Making the blanket itself isn't going to be that challenging. It's going to be 8 straight seams. The challenge is working with the Minky fabric. It's extremely soft and it's very silky, and you're going to have the right sides together, so that's going to make it very slippery. One of the things you can do to mitigate that is have lots and lots of pins, and you'll see once I pin it. So what you're going to need is either, I like to use a rotary cutter and a self-healing mat with Minky, since they're straight edges. If you don't have one, that's fine. You can just use regular sewing scissors. You're going to want a measuring tape, like I said, lots and lots of pins. And one of the things you might want to have, you don't have to have it, but it's going to make it easier to sew the Minky, is a walking foot. You can get these on Amazon for about 15 bucks, and they attach to any sewing machine very easily. So this is a baby blanket, so it's only going to be about 30 inches wide and 33 or 34 inches long. You can really make this whatever size you want. So the first step is to cut out your 2 pieces of fabric. I would allow at least 1 or 2 inches on either side, top and bottom, okay? Then you're going to fold one piece over the other so that the right sides are together. Now another thing you need to know about Minky is that when you cut it, the lint goes everywhere. It is like a snowstorm, so you should have a vacuum handy as well. We're only going to do one side at a time. So take one edge, try to get it lined up as flush as possible, and then we'll start pinning. Okay, so we have our first edge pinned. What I want you to see here is how close these pins are to each other. No more than 2 inches. This is really going to help keep the fabric from shifting. The other thing you'll see is that I allow maybe about 1 inch or so. This is where I'm going to sew, right below the point line of these pins. Okay, so you see we have the first seam done down the one side. The next thing you want to do is smooth the fabric out. You want to get out as many of the wrinkles and bumps as you possibly can. Make it as flat as possible. And then we're going to pin down the opposite side. Now we have the other seam down the other long side of the blanket. So just like you did before, you want to smooth out any wrinkles, any bumps in the fabric. And next we're going to go ahead and pin along the top and put that seam there. Now we finished the top seam, and the last thing we're going to do is the bottom edge of the blanket. So give it one more smooth over to get the wrinkles out. Then what you want to do is you want to pin in from either side, leaving an opening in the middle of about 3 or 4 inches to turn the blanket out. Okay, now that we have all 4 edges of the blanket sewn, and we've left our opening at the bottom in order to turn the blanket right side out, we want to trim the excess from the seam allowance. This is why I like to use a rotary cutter. It makes this part much easier. Put your self-healing mat underneath, and then get a straight edge ruler, and then I usually line it up to be about 1 inch from the actual seam. And then you're just going to cut the excess. And move your ruler and your mat as needed. And just keep going cutting 1 inch from your seam. Okay, now this fabric had a pretty uneven cut, and you can see the way the fabric sheds. Get your vacuum out. Now on the corners, you want to do a diagonal. Get close to the seam, but not so close that you're in danger of snipping it. And cut the corners on a diagonal so you can get some nice sharp points. And then you just keep doing this around the perimeter of the blanket before we turn it right side out. I'm going to continue all the way around, and then on the next segment we'll turn it and start the top stitching. Again, on the corners you want to cut them on a diagonal. Okay, now that we've trimmed the excess from the seam allowances, we're ready to turn the blanket right side out. Okay, so I know that opening seems small, but with this Minky, it's so slippery and it just slides right through. So that's plenty of room. Okay, so it should come through pretty easily. And then what I like to do is I always like to go and pop the corners out. If you've watched my other videos, you know I like sharp corners. I like good points on my corners. So go ahead and pop out all 4. Okay, and the next thing we're going to do, we're almost done, the next thing we're going to do is top stitch the edges all the way around. I do 1.5 inches, and you can see that the seam allowance kind of adds this natural bulk, which serves as a nice frame for the blanket. Okay, so I add 1.5 inches all the way around, again as a measure to keep it from shifting and slipping while you're sewing it. I do pin it even for the top stitch, just to keep it in place. Now, for the top stitch, you can go ahead and pin all the way around and do it all at once. That's what I usually do. And then we'll come back and we'll hand sew this opening closed, and you will have your Minky blanket. Okay, so the top stitching is finished, so the blanket is essentially done. The only thing we need to do now is close that opening that we had to turn the blanket. So what I usually do is I just get a needle and thread. The Minky is very forgiving, and I just kind of sew in a zigzag right inside the seam to close it. And once you just pull and kind of shift it and shape it, you will not even see it's there. So I hope you enjoyed this project. I have made dozens of these, and everyone I give them to absolutely loves them. It's a great custom, personal gift to give a friend.